Welcome to Dr. Beghani and to Professor Ihsan. Thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us this afternoon. You're both extremely welcome. As you know, we have a short time. We shall try and keep our questions short. I'd be very grateful if you could likewise keep your answers short. You may find that we're coming on to a subject you're seeking to answer, but you're very, very welcome. So if I can start us off, Nus, you're keen to...
Thank you, Chairman. If I can start with you, Professor Ihsan, what makes the Kurds politically or culturally distinctive in the Middle East?
Thank you. Well, I think a lot of things makes Kurds distinctive to other nations in the Middle East. Genetically, I think they are Indo-European or European backgrounds, and they speak different language. They are multi-religious cultures, not like just related to one sector or one religion. They have Christian Kurds, Jewish Kurds, Muslim Kurds, Yazidi Kurds, and Kakei Kurd, different things. And the language is distinguished. And for me, as an expert in that part of the world, I think Kurds, they have a vision, looking forward vision, not like some other nations in the area. They are redigging their past and they are living in their past. More life lovers, freedom lovers. I find them like that in culturally. Politically, even politically, they are different from others. They have multi-party systems. They are proved since 1991 until now they are not a threat to any regional power. They managed to hold all the communities together after the ISIS crisis, after what happens in civil wars in Iraq between Syria and Sunnis as well. I think that was the base for tolerance and political tolerance in Kurdistan.
When you said that they are genetically different, does that suppose that most Kurds marry other Kurds?
Not marry other Kurds, but if, in Middle East nations are, for example, Arabs, they think that we are coming from Yemen, all of them, they descended from there. Kurds, they have different things. It's by the nationalism is imagined community for me as an expert in national identity. But they think they are different from others, and they've been struggling for their freedom since the beginning of 20th century until now. This is why I think they are freedom's lover comparing to others. And the vision they have in their mind, we find out after 2003, despite of all what's going on in Iraq and liberation, or somebody name it occupation, the majority of Iraqi, they started to redig their past and they want to rediscover the history, go back 1,400 years back. But Kurds, since 1991, they were always looking forward to more developed, in a state of looking to Tehran and Qom and Ankara. They were looking at London, Paris, DC, different liberal point of view. And
when Daesh arrived on the scene, did the Kurds feel a particular threat because of their distinctive heritage and cultural background? That was a threat that hadn't been felt with other regimes that would have and been violent towards the Kurds.
They've been targeted by different regimes since, for example, mainly in Iraq.
Was there something different about Daesh's attitude that was different to previous threats?
Even the main crime was because they were Kurds and they were willing to preserve their identity, their culture. That's the main reason for that. It was more than any other things in their history. This is why they've been targeted they've been persecuted, they were been genocided by different Iraqi regimes. Even they acknowledged the crimes they committed against Kurds. If you look at 1979, what happens to Faili Kurds, 1983, what happens to Barzani Kurds, Anfal campaign, 1986-87, crimes during uprising, even what's going on today after 16th of October, I consider it what's going on Tos Hormato today after the crisis of 16th of October. I think that's, if you look at it as an expert in genocide, is a way, if we are not going to stop it, is going to lead to another genocide in Iraq against Kurds.
Thank you. And
So Dr. Beghikani, welcome. Before I move on to the question, I just want to go back to the question of language and a challenge that is now facing Kurds in Iraq. Am I right in saying that Kurds in the KRG region, who are under 40 years old today, actually don't speak Arabic or very little Arabic?
True.
So there's a demographic challenge here as well as a generational issue.
True. Because Kurds who were born in 1991 until now, imagine it, until 26 years now, the majority of them, they cannot speak Arabic now because they have no interaction with them. And Baghdad was so isolated during Saddam Hussein's time, and even after 2003 until now, they were fighting each other's Kurds. Kurdistan was a refuge for all educated, wealthy, professional Iraqi. They were taking Kurdistan as refuge. They started to know what Iraq means for them, really. This is why I agree with you. This is really a linguistic challenges for Kurds to despite of all the social connection between both of us. And now when the embargo, the restriction of flight to Kurdistan, a lot of people, they are reluctant to go through Baghdad because they can't speak language. Or Baghdad doesn't mean a lot of things for them because they've been liberated, living their own way since 1991. Immediately some people, they wake up and they impose their will or their target on them. It's not acceptable for the majority.
We talked a lot about the regional neighbours, the powers, and of course many of them, if they were here, would say the challenge to them is obviously Kurdish aspirations would challenge their sovereignty. I want to just take you sort of slightly further away to the rest of the world, the international community. Which countries would you say have been the main supporters of Kurdish aspirations? If you can elaborate, because obviously there's been, back to what the doctor described very aptly as pragmatic, short-term relationships. Maybe you can enlighten us as to which countries do you feel have taken a positive role in the international community, and which countries do you feel have taken a negative role as well when you address that in terms of the international community as you perceive it?
If you excuse me, I'll answer you directly. I remember 1991, I was working for the 40 Brigade Royal Marine. As when the first they entered, they created Safe Haven. I was liaison officer with them. I think the idea of what's going on in Kurdistan today, it started from UK. The Safe Haven before 688, if you remember, if you go back, I think
Article 688, just for the committee.
688 is the Security Council resolution. The idea before Security Council constitution, it started from here, from UK. Safe Haven, it was British initiatives to John Major time to bring Kurds from mountain to safe area, which is around the Hawk and Zaho. Then international community started to push more and came out with Security Council Resolution 688. Then it moved to no-fly zone. Then the Kurds started to go their own way for election, which means I think they started here. But what's going on today and the silence which we hear after 16th of October, mainly from UK government and Foreign Office, really it is shocking for the majority of us, and we don't understand what's going on. You were the first group who created and who protected Kurdistan. Today we know each country, they have their own interests. But what Kurds are asking for, to have a political role that we can sort out our issues politically, peacefully, not threat, not aggression, not the language which is coming from Baghdad. That's something strange for us. And regarding the regional power, really Kurds approved since 1991 until now, I personally agree that Kurdish nationalism is a fragmented one. We are brothers, but we are not partners in politics. We are brothers, we sympathize with Kurds in Turkey, we sympathize with Kurds in Iran, and the idea which is coming on, and that's the base of today's cooperation among regional powers against Kurdistan, it's not at its place. It's going to return Kurds back to before 70s. My generation, if somebody were talking about southern Kurdistan, it was an insult for me. We were thinking about big Kurdistan. Now, the new generation, they think about piece of Kurdistan. I think that it's more encouraging regional or international community to support Kurds of Iraq, to preserve their identity, to keep them from attacks. Okay, that will be more helpful even for regional powers. We have proved that since 1991, we were a key of settlement, not of a key of disturbance for Turkey or Iran, not like the act they did against Kurds after 16th of October. In each part of Kurdistan, they have different struggle with different governments, based on the age of the government, education of the Kurds, wealth of the Kurd, social structure of the Kurds. But the idea of a pan-Kurdishness all over, I think, it goes back to 60s, no more exists. Regarding Kurds in Iraq, if Iraq were democratic, were federal, implementing its constitution, Kurds of Iraq never ever thought of going for independence or for going to referendums. Referendum, just I would like to make clear for your committee here, because still it's not clear for a lot of people. A lot of people, they think that's what's going. Referendum, it was a source of current crisis. I spent 7 years of my life in Baghdad in charge of KRG office there, and I was among Iraqis who fought against Saddam Hussein with the majority of the people. When Ankloid, she was with her supporting INC, and all times when we were knocking the doors and getting your support, all days, we were all working hard to build federal, democratic, pluralistic, stable Iraq. We were working to create Iraqis in Iraq, not proxies for Iran, and implementing the constitution. But what's going on in Iraq, after 2005 until 2011, they've never ever implemented constitution, and they were looking at the constitution as if as a candy store. Things of their interest they were picking up. This is why Kurds, they end up with no option except going to referendum and listening to the peoples. And referendums, by all means, it was not a crime. Referendums is what people likes. What the reaction of international community and mainly Iraqi government is surprising all of us. We spent all our life struggling for freedom, human rights, dignity, perspective, equality. We find out that even the Kurds in Iraq, they have no rights to say, I want this.
And you were going to come in.
Yes. What's been a great disappointment for many of us is that the Kurdish parliament, which was elected, democratically elected, has not met for 2 years. Now, that's, I think,
I totally agree with you. That was not good move, and like all other Middle Eastern countries, all other democracies, we have our own mistakes. I agree with you, and I respect your point of view. It was not a right one, and this is why KRG and Kurdistan region, they should fix their reorganize their internal home and fix their internal problem in order to get more respect from international community and go ahead.
We're going to move on, if I may. Andrew, you're going to...
Very, very briefly, Mr. because I think some of the points have already been made. But the UK, it seems to me, you feel has not stood by Kurdistan, has not been the friend to Kurdistan that you'd have hoped. That's a great shame, because I know that Kurdistan has been a huge ally, particularly over the recent issues with ISIS. What would you like the UK to do? How would you like our policies and our approach to Kurdistan changed? If Foreign Secretary was sitting here today, what would you say to him about what British policy should be towards Kurdistan?
Have better role, political role, between Baghdad and Erbil. Because Erbil, we need international broker to work because there is no trust, and Baghdadi thinks they are winner. There is no such negotiations, and they are excusing for implementing constitution, which is totally, it's not true. They are implementing corruption and power against Kurds, against Kurdistan as well. And the other recommendation, I think, if I have the right to say or to suggest, I think it's a correct time for UK foreign policy to send, or from your committee, to send a group, truth-finding mission group, to see what crimes committed in Tosh-Hormatu and Kirkuk, which was not less than the crimes committed during Saddam Hussein's time. I remember in 1987 when Congress, they sent a committee, a truth-finding committee to Iraq before Anfal. If they were listening to the finding of that time, we had chances to prevent Anfal at that time. I think now a UK government or UK Parliament can send a truth-finding committee to find the truth. I think crimes against humanity is being committed against Kurds, or crimes being committed against Kurds, and I have all the data, so I can give you names and pictures and everything, but the best way to send a committee there to find the truth, what's going on, and then to evaluate the future plan, because if something like that's not happening, chances for committing new genocides exist there. And the base role for UK is to have political role for both sides. They should sit down together and negotiate.
We are short of time. Obviously, the KRG has said that it wants sort of calm dialogue. And to proceed on that basis, what do you think is a barrier to negotiation between Erbil and Baghdad?
I think Baghdad, they are not willing to start the negotiation process. Why? Based on my analysis, really, because the current prime minister in Iraq, he wants to be portrayed as a hero because election is coming on. And I think some foreign ministers, some foreign countries, they think that to have hero in Baghdad in order the other factions of Shia cannot win the election. And they think that the current prime minister, he's going to stop Iran's more involved, which I personally think is no way, because not the current prime minister in Iraq has that character, and not Iraqi society is like Saddam Hussein's time no more. And Iran is so penetrated in the society, so in charge, more than anyone else can predict. This is why everybody thought that Kurds can be victims. Baghdad, still they think it's a big nose to negotiate, because they are thinking for, always the state thinks for an enemy and victim. They think the best thing that they can do is Kurds, which is under different banners, because the memory of Iraqis, unfortunately, can be measured by kilobyte, not by gigabytes. Okay. The history for them, they don't get lesson from the histories.
Thank you. And looking more broadly at the region, do you think it's possible for Kurdish movements elsewhere to achieve their aspirations through negotiation, or other places where you see violence occurring in the future?
I think in Syria there is chances for negotiations. I think after what's going on in Iraq, as my colleagues you mentioned that, and YPG, they will start to engage themselves in negotiation with the regime, with Saddam, because they don't want to be, they think, betrayed between brackets, and I don't think it's betrayed. And they think they don't want to be betrayed because they think that they can be sold by American at any minute. This is why there is a chance for them to negotiate with regime, but they will never ever go back to the pre-2011 in Syria. In Turkey, with the current regime, is hopeless, and in Iran, even with current regime, is hopeless to negotiate.
Thank you.
Can I thank you both very much indeed for your time. It's extremely kind of you to make time for us and to give such full and clear answers to our questions.
Thank you
both very much indeed. Can we swap witnesses?